Welcome everybody to episode number 290 of Goulet Q&A, where fountain pens, they're still a thing. And I'm Brian Goulet here from Goulet Pens to share this meticulously slapdash and succinctly rambling video where I take your fountain pen, ink, and paper questions and answer them as only someone like me who devoted an unreasonable amount of their life to fountain pens could. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about ink companies making bespoke ink to match a specific color. Is that a thing? When there will be a new Premiere from Edison, polishing up brass pens that have lost some of their luster, whether pen companies are archiving their old inks that they release or what, and what a typical day looks like for me as the owner of a company versus one of my team members who doesn't have as much of those things to worry about here at Goulet Pens. So yeah, it'll be fun. We'll kind of wander all over the place on this one. And I showed you a ton of products last week. I'm skipping over the whole new, what's new kind of section, basically because Janaea this week is getting out a just-in video with all the new products and stuff like that. So I'm going to let her do all the talking. You can go check that video out. And go check out new arrivals and coming soon stuff on our site. And I'm just going to get right into the feedback, shall we? All right. So got some feedback regarding using a fountain pen with a straight edge. That was a question that happened last week. Kirk Wilson said that the problem I've found using a fountain pen with a straight edge actually has to do with the water-based ink. The ink can get under the edge and can be very easily smeared when you go to remove the straight edge. There were a lot of people that had this kind of feedback. And Juicy Louise E said, straight lines are easy. I was taught to use a wood or plastic ruler with a raised center. Turn it upside down so the edge is raised to stop ink seeping underneath. Turn the pen as if reverse writing and draw your line. That'll put down a little less ink. Generations in England, at least, learned this at school. So I thought that was kind of neat. A lot of people had that feedback too, especially like architecture rulers and stuff often have like a cork, under them to help keep from sliding for one, but also because it raises up the edge a little bit off the paper for, drafting pens and stuff like that, but can also work with fountain pens. So thought that was neat to get some tips. Had a lot of good feedback on that last time. So apparently there's a bunch of y'all using straight edges with fountain pens. So who knew? Did get some really cool feedback about my fun fact last week about Robert Todd Lincoln. Jeffrey Hall said, "Hi Brian, kudos to your company on the 15th anniversary." Thank you. Another great Q&A. Love all the discussion on the inks as well as all the cool new stuff. Good. I had indeed read the story about Robert Lincoln before, but that sort of thing is infinitely fascinating. A little more about Robert Lincoln. After having declined to go with his mother and father to Ford's Theater on the night of the assassination, he was an eyewitness to the shooting of James A. Garfield and was just outside the building at the Pan American explosion in 1901 when Pan American Exposition in 1901 when President McKinley was shot. He usually declined to attend presidential functions after that, but he did appear at the dedication of the Lincoln Memorial in 1922 with President Harding, who then died the following year, and former President William Howard Taft, who was the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court by this time. So kind of interesting. Yeah, must seem like to him like he's got some bad luck, but kind of interesting. History is really, really fascinating sometimes. And then I had another one. This was from Carbon Organic Emperor. This is regarding the wet writing orange inks that I talked about last week. Said, what are your thoughts about Diamine Pumpkin? Is that also safe as the other oranges you mentioned, or it also rusts in the nib? Please tell. It doesn't rust. But this Diamine Pumpkin is one of those inks that really crustifies a lot. Now, it doesn't hurt the pen or anything. It just gets a little crusty on the nib. You just wipe it off and you can keep on going. It's not as bright as some of the other colors that I mentioned. And I guess it's pretty wet. It's not what I would say is like one of the wettest, but it's a pretty smooth flowing. It's just a really nice orange color, that Diamine Pumpkin, but it is a little bit higher maintenance because of the crustiness on there. So I left it off the list, but it is one of my favorite orange inks. So thought it was worth a mention. All right, I got a couple of company updates for you this week, and then we'll get into the questions. First off, this is coming up next week. We've got Thanksgiving, which is a U.S. holiday celebrating Thanksgiving. It's not a global thing. I realize that. But because of that, we're going to have a lot of time off. We're going to have a lot of family visitations and stuff happening. So we are not going to do a Q&A next week. I'm going to take some time off, be with my family. And, everybody else is going to be with families and stuff too. So, it's we're just going to chill a little bit next week. And then we'll have the Black Friday, Cyber Monday. A lot of people doing sales and deals, not just in the pen world, but all over the place. So we'll just chill. We'll chillax a little bit next week, and then we'll come back the week after that. So you're going to be off Q&A for 1 week, and then I'll be back the following week. And then, on the personal front, we are going to be hosting Rachel's side of Extended Family and doing a whole big turkey thing. We're like now more the like center hub of the Thanksgiving activities. So we will have our hands tied for sure. As far as Goulet Pens goes, we're going to be closed on Thanksgiving Day. That's Thursday next week on the 28th, I think. And we'll have a limited team here on Friday. We will be shipping orders out, but we'll come back at it hard that following week once we have all the orders catch up from Black Friday, Cyber Monday, that whole weekend. We are going to be doing a bunch of sales and deals, so be on the lookout for that. There's way too many of them to mention here, so I'll just give you a heads up that there will be sales and deals coming. Sign up for our email notifications if you want the details of that, or you can just check our website once Black Friday rolls around, and we'll get all that stuff going. Cool. That's all for this week. Let's get into the questions. All right, question number 1. This is from Billiken. Is there an ink company who can color match a particular color on request? So like bespoke ink. It's not a real popular thing, especially when you think like the labor that's involved with mixing an individual bottle of ink. It would probably not be something that would be very easy to scale. But the only one that I know that has done this, I have no experience with this company, and I also don't know the people behind this company at all. But I think they've been around for a little bit. I heard about them a few years ago, and then I had not thought about them at all since COVID. And then when you asked this question, I was like, wasn't there one company that was doing that? So there may be others out there. If y'all have experience, leave notes in the comments. But the company that I know, and again, this is not an endorsement or anything, it's literally just the company that I could find that does this, is Kiwi Inks. I don't know where they're based out of. Their website is kind of sparse on their About Us page. But, at least check it out. It does seem like they have the ability to do, they have regular inks that they do, but it also seems like you can get customized ink. Looks like about $35 for a 30 ml bottle, which is, it's a pretty good amount, but it's not like exorbitant. I mean, it may seem exorbitant, but trust me, for the labor involved, it's not exorbitant. So you can choose your shimmer preference, whether if you want shimmer at all, or you can get, different types of shimmer. Your shade, your particular color shade. They have like a little color wheel type thing that you can pick from, and the degree of the like wetness and dryness, like the flow. So those are all things you can sort of customize. So I don't really know anybody who's used it. I don't know how effective the end product is. So maybe worth asking around, do some Googling and see if anybody's talking about Kiwi Ink. But anyway, and they have on their notice on their site saying they've got like a super backlog. It's like a 2-person team. And yeah, so I have never used them, but it was a company that looks like they still exist that is doing this. So thought I would mention it. And I don't know. Is anybody else willing to do it? I don't know. I'm sure it's a lot of work. This next one's from Anne-Marie Vandervoort. Will there be a new Premiere coming from Edison Pen Company? Well, the Premiere is our exclusive model. So basically, if Edison's going to do a Premiere, they're going to do it through us. It's really up to us and their production schedule and stuff like that. So we used to crank them out like seasonally. It was like several of them a year. That kind of cooled down a little bit, but we are actually releasing one this week, just a couple days ago. I put it on the website. So it is the Premiere. It's called Starry Primary Manipulation. So it is a Jonathan Brooks material. He's really known for his primary manipulation material. What's different about this one, rather than having like the really stark white colors, we decided to do like a silvery kind of shimmer color. So this is definitely a very shimmery kind of blend, and it looks really cool. It is translucent, so you get to see more depth to the material and the shimmer and stuff like that. And you get a nice mix of colors. You get some blues and greens and purples and yellows and reds and silvers. And it's a really cool looking effect. Jonathan makes amazing materials. So this is going to be a limited pen. We're going to have 225 of them total. So they're $199. Normally Edison, stock pens are $149. So it's a little bit more because of the premium material, but and the limited nature of it. But yeah, there you go. That is our latest Premiere. Literally solicited these questions, I think Friday last week, and the pen just came in and we're launching it like a couple of days after getting the question. So I thought, what timing? So there you go. Check it out. Premiere, if you're familiar with that. The Premiere, actually, that was the first Goulet exclusive that we ever had, was the Edison Premiere, going all the way back to 2011, early 2011. So yeah, that's been a minute. Almost 14 years now we have carried that pen. Yeah, that's kind of crazy. That's not the longest running pen that we've carried, but pretty darn close to it. Certainly the longest running exclusive that we've ever done. So yeah, it's kind of neat. A little bit of Goulet history there too. Next question. This one's from Eastwind123. Hi, Brian, and congratulations on 15 years. Woo! I have a question. I have a Kaweco Brass Sport and a Brass Supra. I've allowed the patina to build up, but I've recently thought about restoring them to their original shiny glory. What would be the best way to go about that? Thank you for the great videos. Okay. So there's a couple different ways that you can do this. It's pretty straightforward with the Kawecos, especially something like the Supra, because there's no trim. It's really just like polishing a brass rod. The biggest complication that you're going to have is going to be the nib unit itself. Whoops, that's the wrong end of the pen. So, basically you don't want to go too nuts on the nib, though. With one of the techniques I'll have, you're not even going to affect the nib really, but you can actually remove the nib unit. If you really want to restore this thing, the nice thing is you can pull it apart. You can basically pretty much disassemble this whole thing. Can it unscrew? Yeah. So the nib unit can unscrew right out of the Supra, and you can literally just be dealing with bare metal. So that's kind of nice. I'm actually going to switch over to my hand shots so you can see a little more close up what I'm doing. But I'm going to talk about two different techniques. One of them I'll show you in terms of how to restore these things. And yeah, hopefully it'll be helpful to you. All right, so I have a few different pens here. I've got the Kaweco Supra, which is the one that you were, talking about. And then I have a couple of Traveler's pens, which are more on the dirty side. I don't have anything that's like super patinaed, because honestly, brass doesn't patina that quickly, in my opinion. Not like copper, certainly not like sterling silver does. And then I have this old Keras Custom, this brand that we used to carry, but it is solid brass. And honestly, this one has held up quite well for the number of years that I've had it. So one of the techniques that is the simplest to do and is the safest is just to use a jeweler's cloth. So, this is our Goulet cloths. Of course, you can buy them, but, this isn't just a shameless plug for those. But the thing about them, you can get jeweler's cloths too. You can get them at like a jeweler store or online or whatever. But a jeweler's cloth is going to have just a plain cloth, and then it's going to have usually like a white kind of cloth too, which has jeweler's rouge embedded in it. So it's a very, very light polishing compound essentially, and that's really what's going to be key for polishing these brass pens. So the one that I'm going to do here is I've got let's see here, I've got a Traveler's pen here. This is the rollerball version that I have, but the outside of the pen, it's a newer pen, which the outside looks pretty decent actually. It's got some surface scratches, but the inside where the ink has been in there and whatnot, and just it hasn't gotten as much air or whatever. I think it's also like just where I've handled it more with my fingers. It's a little darker. So I'm gonna try polishing this up just so you can see how it looks. So it's pretty simple to use. I mean, if you've never polished anything before, you basically just rub it with the stuff that you got. So I'm going to take that off so that I'm dealing with a more solid object here. There you go. So you can see that's getting a little more shiny there. And usually when you're polishing these kind of things, the oxidation that is coming off is going to make the cloth a little darker. That's normal. Oh yeah, boy, look at that. You can see the color is lightening up quite a bit. It's getting a lot shinier. And the nice thing is a polishing cloth like this with that rouge in it is going to get out a lot of micro scratches as well. So it's just really going to make a pen polish up nicely and look so much better. So you can see there like what I polished versus what I haven't. It's pretty stark. I'm just keeping going with it so I can see just how shiny I can get it. But anyway, that's pretty good right there. And you see it like takes a few seconds, and it takes a little bit of elbow grease. But honestly, it's not that bad, especially on a pen this size. So just for kicks, I'm actually going to remove the grip section off of this. I'm going to polish the grip section, and then I'm going to leave the middle of it unpolished, just so you can see like a more dramatic effect. I need to clean this pen. My cartridge is empty. Okay, so let's see what's the best way to do this. It's a teeny little part. All right, so I'm just going to really just move it back and forth. I find this is the most effective way to clean pens, unless it's a faceted pen. Like if you do have a Kaweco Brass Sport, that you're not going to be able to spin it in your hand. The nice thing about spinning it in your hand like this is you're basically enveloping the entire pen around, and you're polishing the whole thing kind of at once. Versus if you're, polishing laterally like this, you're only going to kind of get one side, and it's just easier to polish it like this. Now I wouldn't worry about threads and stuff like that unless you just really want to make it look good, but there you go. So I didn't go totally nuts on it, but there you go. You can see the difference that the polished parts versus the unpolished. Now it almost looks like two different materials, quite honestly. So that looks crazy, and I'm not going to leave it like that because I don't want to watch the world burn. So now I'll polish up the middle, and we'll get this thing looking real nice. So just take a minute. Now, if you have a really, really heavy patina on this thing, it's going to take a lot of elbow grease. This is a very gentle method for doing this. So this one is going to take a little more on that middle section because it was a little worse. You don't necessarily have to worry about changing like where you're polishing on the cloth too much. Unless it's just like you feel like you're polishing and nothing is happening anymore. It could be because the cloth is kind of getting used up in that spot, and then you just move over to a new spot. The nice thing is it gets really dark when you've polished a whole lot in one area, but you can literally, I just grabbed this one. This was a new one off the shelf. I just grabbed it today. The old one that I was using is this one, which looks gross. It's got our old logo on it, which means this is at least 7 years old because that's when we changed our logo. So that's a little crazy, but yeah, not 7 years, 6 years, 6.5. Anyway, I've had that cloth for at least that long, probably 7 or 8 years. And so as I was polishing it, I was like, you know what? This is probably old. I might need to get a new cloth, especially if I'm going to show it on video. And I started polishing with it, and I was like, oh yeah, this works way better. There you go. So I can keep going with it and get it even lighter, but you get the idea. It looks nice and shiny. The lighting is kind of crazy for me here, but it's going to look so much better. Oh, come on. Yeah, looks a lot better, a lot shinier. Getting those nice fingerprints on there. It's going to immediately start oxidizing again because I'm touching it, but yeah, just you can see it wasn't even that bad, but the difference between the polished up version and the original outside is pretty noticeable. So yeah, let's see. I did want to try polishing the outside of this just because this has a bunch of like scratches on it, right? A bunch of those kind of micro scratches. And I think it's going to help with some of those, but it's not going to get all of them. You have to have kind of reasonable expectation. And this one I'm not going around because I've got the clip to deal with. Now on this particular pen, I can remove the clip actually, so I could spin it around. Boy, that already looks so much shinier. It's like as compared to this, we're just kind of dull looking. My autofocus is like just not having it. Okay, let's see if I can. There we go. Yeah, so shiny. Yeah, that's more dull. Looks kind of gross. But then when I shine it up, it looks so much brighter. That's the nice thing about metal like this is it's really easy to kind of restore it. Now these cloths, you can use it on any type of metal. Actually works great on nibs too. Not that you have to restore nibs quite as often, but you do get a lot of those fine micro scratches, especially just putting the pen, in and out, capping and uncapping it. That is a very common thing to get kind of a scratchy looking nib. But you can make that better. This is my older one that's even kind of worse off. And you can see here, once I polish and get it more to its restored luster, it really is kind of a noticeable difference from the old one. And that's just with the polishing cloth. This is the less aggressive method for cleaning. But if you wanted to go even more aggressive, you can use a polishing compound. Brasso is one that I used a lot when I was in the Corps of Cadets back in college. I had to polish a lot of brass things for my uniforms, and Brasso works great. There may be other products out there that are kind of similar to Brasso, which would, be something that I would be very cautious if it's a mixture of brass and other things, because I don't know any type of like polishing compound, because it's probably going to have some kind of abrasive in it. I don't know what kind of impact that it might have on the other parts of the pen. So that I would be a little more cautious about. Something like, the Quaco Supra, especially because you can remove that nib. I'll show you a little more close up here because I showed you earlier. I was just holding it up. So this has a nib unit that you can just unscrew right out of the pen. Kind of common for a lot of fountain pens, but then you can go nuts polishing this thing. I would have no qualms about using a Brasso type compound to polish that. And that would do a really good job polishing. And then honestly, you could clean that up and then probably use a polishing cloth even after that to get it like even smoother, because this is going to be a finer polish than what you would have on here. Yeah. I just noticed I've got a little, let me just, what the heck, while we're here, I've got a little patina on there just from some old ink or something. So I'm just going to hit it with this real quick and see what it can do. Super compelling video, I know. Might have to edit this together and make it a little faster. Oh yeah, it's getting it. So I could keep going, but this is really boring. I don't want to do that to you all day. I still got a little bit of that. Whatever that stuff is, I would have to keep polishing it, but it'll get it. Anyway, so there you go. That's what I got for you as far as polishing brass goes. There's not a ton of brass pens out there, but I would imagine most of them are going to end up being kind of similar to this. You will get some polishing junk on your hands. That's normal. But yeah, it'll polish up real nice, and then, it'll patina again over time, and then you just keep on doing it again and again and again. Something like this, you can do it basically forever. That pen's going to outlive you. You're really not taking any significant amount off of the pen by polishing it like that. It would only be if you were like sanding it with an actual abrasive that would be a problem. That I wouldn't recommend doing unless you're a professional and you know what you're doing. So anyway, there you go. That's how you do your brass pens. All right. Jillikin Billikin is sneaking in a second question on this one. Do pen companies archive their inks of what they have previously sold? That's a good question. It's kind of crazy, but I've visited a lot of different facilities. I've talked to a lot of different distributors and manufacturers and stuff like that. Some manufacturers are a little more sentimental about their like history and stuff like that. There's definitely like Monograppa, for example, it literally has like a museum like in their facility with historical pens and things like that. Not even just their own pens, but other pens that are significant. Aurora has a whole museum as well. So there's definitely some companies that like are way more into cataloging and kind of keeping historical record and stuff like that. But the thing is, like, I can't name you a single pen company that keeps any kind of an ink catalog in any publicly available format. I just don't ever see it. I've never seen it. I don't know. Maybe y'all know differently, but I've never come across that. A lot of times with ink, it's maybe a little bit of an afterthought, especially, since the age of the internet, it's like it, to me, would seem, like easier to maybe just take some swabs and take some pictures, and that can be your catalog. That's more like essentially what blogs are for. We have done some of that, but not as much for ink, honestly. Like, this question is making me realize, like, wow, we haven't really cataloged that either. But I mean, we'd have to do it for like every brand, so it gets a little wild. But yeah, honestly, I can't say definitively that most pen companies have like stockpiles of their ink. What I couldn't tell from your question, like archive the ink of what they previously sold, I didn't know if you meant like in a digital format, like some sort of record that you can look at, or do they like physically have the ink there so that if they want to remake it or reference it or something like that, can they do that? The answer to both of those is I don't really know if they do that. I don't believe, like, honestly, some of the companies, some of them are mysterious and I don't really know what they might have, but others, like I know Lamy, for example, they don't have like a, like a shelf with like every single pen that they've ever made, which would be amazing if they did, but they just don't. I mean, they've been around a long time. They've done a lot of different pens, and it's just not something they really did. So I don't know what kind of records they do have. I would imagine they've got a lot of records for like technical specifications, like whenever they do an ink, they have to like mix a formula. I'm sure they have records of all that kind of stuff, but I don't know if they have like the final product sitting there on a shelf ready to be used again. This is part of where I view like me as a retailer, content creator. Like that's part of why I have such a ridiculous pen and ink collection, is because it is a little bit like, yeah, there really is not a great record of this stuff. I love to be able to pull out older stuff and show you all. And now that we've been around for a minute, we're getting to the point where the things that I got when I first got into pens are now starting to become more vintage, which is kind of crazy, but that's how it works, right? Great question. I would love to get any feedback from any of you all. If you know that there are like great systems of record out there for any, pen, ink companies, whatever, that'd be kind of cool. But yeah, honestly, this is a weak spot for us as an industry. All right, we'll get into the next question. I'll be honest and say, I did not realize how disgusting my fingers would get doing all that brass polishing. And now I just have to have like gross fingers the rest of the episode, but that's okay. I'll wash my hands afterwards. I just want to get this cranked out for y'all. All right, last question that I have for this week. This is from Mila33. What does a typical day look like for you as a business owner versus employee with a specific job? So this is a really good question. And it's going to be different, for different companies, because every company's got its own vibe. The unique thing that Rachel and I have here is that we are not just owners, but we are the founders. So a lot of companies weren't founded by the people that are still running it. A lot of people are good at starting companies, but it is a whole different skill set of maintaining and growing a company over a long period of time. Usually it's, not as exciting, not as, not as like putting out fire, solving problems every day, though we still do plenty of that, honestly. But I don't know, some people like have serial like ideas, and they're really good at fleshing it out, getting it off the ground. But then when it gets more to like establishing structure, managing, maintaining, putting in leadership, putting in processes, that is a kind of a different skill set than it is, entrepreneurial, like founding, just coming up with an idea. It is difficult to kind of cross that. So we have done that, I would say, after 15 years. I have a little more of a bend to me that's a little more entrepreneurial and starting things up. Rachel is more of the structure creator and organizer. So I think the two of us have balanced each other out pretty well. So when I'm going to speak about this question, I'm going to speak about it really just from my perspective. But I do talk to a lot of other business owners, and there's a lot of different ways that people do it. So the unique flair that we have here, Rachel and I both founded the company. The way that we founded it is we very much had like a servant leadership type of model from the beginning. Not only because it was the two of us, we're married, we are life partners in every sense of the word, and we wanted to serve each other well in the growing of this business. So we were always trying to put the other first and do our responsibilities well, but also, caring for others. And that transcended beyond just the two of us. As soon as we started hiring folks, we viewed it not as like, oh, okay, these are the ones who are going to take care of the work that we don't want to do anymore. It was like, no, they're the ones doing the really important work that we've been doing. And how do we support them? How do we care for them and provide better structure, equipment, experience, knowledge, whatever it is? Really, everything that we try to do is to make our teams' lives better and easier and smoother and things like that. So very much like an upside down pyramid kind of a thing as far as leadership goes. So what that means is that as we've grown the business, basically Rachel and I did pretty much everything between the two of us. We did pretty much everything that this business does at some point, so we have had to be super jack of all trades. And so a lot of times we're not the best at it, but, we have enough experience, we have enough skills and stuff to be able to cover it as needed to get us to kind of the next place. And then we hire, and then, we can get some of the responsibilities off our plate, and then, flesh out, somebody else's role. It's very much been like that, grassroots, kind of growing it from the ground up like that. And we're big into like building up others on the team, hiring folks with maybe a little less experience, but a lot of potential and good capacity to learn and grow. And then we give them more as they get to know things, especially because fountain pens are so specialized too. Like if you don't have a deep product knowledge, it's really tough. Like you can have a lot of experience elsewhere, but you can't really hit the ground running until you get your bearings on the various products and the brands and stuff like that. So that always takes people a while. And Rachel and I, that's definitely one advantage we have, is we know the products pretty darn well because we've just been immersed in it for so long. But to really get to your question here, what does a typical day look like? So what this whole story and where I've been going with all this, what this means is that Rachel and I have done a lot of things. So we're very cognizant of the work that it takes to do a lot of the different roles here. But we are no longer doing them frequently day to day. But we're still a small company, and people get sick, people's kids get sick, crazy things happen. Sometimes people change careers and we have to, cover for certain things. So it really helps us to be able to short stop in a lot of different areas. And honestly, that's kind of a good quality because we're, again, a small company. That's kind of a needed quality for literally every team member here. The more diverse somebody's experience and skills are, the more valuable they're going to be in a small company like ours. So being able to cover for a lot of different people, and honestly, even if you're not doing, those jobs every day, knowing how they're done and knowing what it takes to get them done, honestly makes everybody more empathetic. They're able to work together, communicate better. So there's huge advantages. We love to cross-train. We love to, get people exposed to a lot of different areas because, somebody in the marketing team who's like producing content all day, they may never have to tape up a box, but, we have them tape up some boxes and stuff, early on when they first get here, and, try to keep them abreast of how things work, because they're going to do their job better knowing the impact that it's going to have on fulfillment and how it's going to impact customer care. And so like a lot of cross training and stuff like that. But that's a really big part of kind of what we do. And that goes to me and Rachel as well as owners. So me personally, I really don't have any 2 days that are identical because I wear a lot of different hats. And so it does mean that there's like a rhythm to certain days. I really try to keep a rhythm to my week, and then things are flexible throughout the week. So it's really less about having the same day to day, and it's more about having, annual rhythms of like strategic planning and leadership stuff, quarterly rhythms, for like projects and initiatives, and then it's like monthly, biweekly, weekly, daily, so it kind of breaks down depending on the task. But just the areas that I am really kind of directly responsible for, I'm CEO, owner, obviously, marketing director / manager. I manage the marketing team. Rachel helps out a lot with that, but I'm the official, leader of that. I'm a marketing performer, literally doing that right now. Video tech, I have to get tripods and SD cards and all this type of stuff. Vendor relationships, product inspection, design, all that type of stuff. I have 6 direct reports at the moment. So I have one-on-ones and ad hoc meetings and goals and all kinds of stuff that I do to support them. It's really a lot. It's a lot of different things. I also just kind of end up dealing with a lot of like facility stuff. We have a building here. It's almost 24,000 square feet. It takes a lot to keep that building up. So, I have to get involved, to a degree with all that kind of stuff. Legal stuff, reviewing contracts and all that type of stuff. A lot of IT stuff. It ends up getting really complicated, or there's like security stuff that I need, needs to be like, kind of at like admin level. Rachel and I shortstop a lot of that. So it's really a really healthy mix of things. Not all of this is happening every day, but on any given day, I could deal in any of these areas, if not many of them in the same day. So I really keep sort of a weekly rhythm. I have certain meetings that are recurring in different frequencies. I might have a meeting, that's like a product, new product meeting that's, 1 hour a week. And so, I get in that mindset for that meeting. But then, I have Q&A like this. I sit down and do this every week, and there's a certain amount of prep and publishing, post-production stuff that's involved there. So that keeps a rhythm to my week as well. There's other things that just come up that are totally random, people issues and things like that, facilities issues, all those types of things. Those are much more kind of ad hoc, and I just end up dealing with them pretty much whenever it happens, if a fridge breaks or whatever. So there's a schedule that I can kind of mostly stick to, but it's really subject to change. So I have a weekly rhythm, but boy, does it, pretty much every day my schedule moves around, partly because I'm not a good time manager, but also because priorities shift all throughout the day and I have to kind of go with the flow there. So let's see here. I would say, any given day, there's no less than probably 6 to 8 different areas or like teams, tasks, or whatever that I'm switching between. So it is not for the faint of heart. There are other ways to run businesses. Rachel and I are very hands-on. That's just our style. And it does suit us well for this type of business. E-commerce in general is it's a tough business because you really have to cover a lot of different things. And it's really a lot of it's constantly evolving and changing. Shipping guidelines, website things, social media stuff, customer sentiment, products development, operation, like fulfillment software and all this type of stuff. There's a lot of it that goes on. But you got to be wired kind of the right type of crazy to like get excited about that every day. So that's kind of like what it's like for me. I get excited about it. And also like I've been doing it for a while. So things do come up and it's like, oh boy, but at this point, there are still things that we run into that we haven't run into before, but a lot of things we run into, it's like, okay, we've done it before. So it's a matter of just like, all right, I know I got to set aside a couple hours, deal with this, and then, so on. Straight up regular team member, it's going to vary depending on their role. Especially if you're talking like, call it more entry level or, somebody who's got a more simplistic job, a more specialized job, as opposed to more of a generalist or a manager. Basically the more areas of responsibility you have, the more you're going to kind of be pulled in different directions and short stopping folks. Because we, again, like are pretty hands-on here. Like nobody is above, like any other person or any other task. Like there are times when I go around and tighten up the arms on the chairs around the office, because we're really busy and the rest of the team can't do it or whatever, we really cover a lot of different things. So, team members, it's really not like strictly hierarchical kind of thing. But they definitely have more of a regular rhythm. So, like our fulfillment team, they got their order of operations, getting orders out the door safely, so they're picking orders, they're, packing, shipping labels, all that type of stuff. Organizing the warehouse, cleaning it, they help a lot with production, making ink samples and various things like that. So with them, it's a little more straightforward every day. They know they're going to spend the good portion of their day shipping out orders every single day. So still very important. They have certain meetings that they attend. We have, team meetings that we do once a week or once every couple of weeks, depending on the complexity of the role. And so they, do have some meetings. We have company meetings where we talk about how we're doing as a company, what's going on in the world, show some new products and stuff like that. And then we do company functions and stuff like that. But largely it's going to be like, they know their core work. They know they're going to come in and just do that with excellence every single day. Other teams, customer care, a little more fluid because anytime you're dealing with people, there's always got a little more fluidity to your schedule because people, they're not, as straightforward as shipping a box. But our team does a really good job with that. We've done a pretty good job of structuring something that is inherently unstructured, which is just receiving communication from potentially anyone, anywhere in the world at any given time, and then responding to that. So that team does a really good job there, but they have a rhythm as well. They know they're going to be answering emails and live chats and voicemails and things like that. There's a certain amount of like hands-on product testing and, returns and troubleshooting and stuff like that. So their stuff may be more fluid throughout the day, changing, based on the urgency of a situation or, something like that, needs of a certain customer. If a certain product launches, they know there's going to be a lot more questions about that product on a given day, but there's that. And then, somebody like our operations team, they're placing purchase orders every day. They have a pretty good rhythm on the operations side of things, our bookkeeper, data analyst, stuff like that. So they have a little more regular schedule. The marketing team is probably the one that has the least schedule because so much is driven by what product's in, how much quantity did it sell, did it not, what's trending on social media right now, how much we tap into that kind of stuff. There's a lot of creative work, which requires brainstorming and, editing and all these types of things. So marketing is a little more changing day to day, but we do try to keep somewhat of a rhythm to it. So anyway, that's hopefully that answers your question somewhat. I don't know. We just do a lot of cool stuff here. I really, after 15 years of doing this, I still just really enjoy getting to do so much of what we do around here. I really try not to take that for granted, even though doing anything for that long, it can be easy to have it feel like Groundhog Day a little bit, where it's like the same thing every day. But I really don't do the same thing every day. So I think that's what really helps keep it fresh. And for a lot of our team, I think like it's that book Good to Great by Jim Collins talks about like being in the right seat on the bus. If I was to be doing the exact same thing every day, I don't think I would thrive. I would for a while, but I need to be challenged, creatively more in that way. So I'm very well suited for where I am. But some of our fulfillment folks, who are great at shipping out orders, they're super happy coming in and largely doing like 70% of their job exactly the same every day. And that's just where they thrive. And no one is better than the other. It's we all have our place and we work as a team, and it's pretty cool how that works. So anyway, little insights there. I hope you enjoyed that little deep dive there. That's it for questions this week. I got a little bit of Brian's adventures, and then pretty much we'll wrap this thing up. All right, so I have not done anything too crazy in the last week or so. I did get to do a little bit of tree work. So during COVID, I got really into tree work. I've talked a lot about it on the Pencast and stuff like that before. So I'm not doing that like every single weekend, like I had. I don't have as much time as I did during the COVID times outside, but I'm still doing that. I still have a lot of like ropes and equipment and stuff like that. So what it was is there was, somebody, some service work opportunities came up. So my friends and I wanted to go some, capable, physical individuals had some like pulling out some stumps, trimming back trees, bushes, those types of things, just some like landscaping type stuff for just an elderly person that we knew. And so we did that, and I legit got to do some like, there was like some trees that were starting to encroach on some power lines. So we needed to, it wasn't like an unsafe situation, but if the tree fell the wrong way or something, it would be problematic. So, got to pull some ropes and cut the tree and get it to safely. And I felt confident doing that. So that was kind of neat just to get to do that with some folks that I don't typically get to work with as much in like a volunteer capacity. And the weather was just gorgeous. Joseph even came along with me, even though he's not so much an outdoor kid. He was still willing to do it with me. And so that was really cool, just as like a father-son kind of experience to do together. It was pretty fun. And then, so getting to do some of that outside, and I was motivated to like clean up my own leaves and all that kind of stuff. So I did a lot of outdoor yard work, nothing that's really picture worthy or anything, sorry. But, it was just, it was good to get out there, kind of get my hands dirty. And then, I mentioned, I feel like I keep talking about this, but I've been playing Stardew Valley, and Rachel has gotten into it now too. And yeah, she's like fallen down the rabbit hole. So now we're each playing it. She has it on one console and I have it on the other. I got an Xbox and she's got it on the Switch. So we haven't done any like co-op mode or anything like that yet. We both wanted to like understand what the heck we're doing before we did that. But I have a feeling if we do a co-op thing, it's going to end up being on the Switch, which the Switch drives me crazy because the button configuration is different than the Xbox. Like the A and the B and the X and the Y buttons are switched. So every time I go to play like Mario Party or some other thing on the Switch, I play Xbox more. But when I go to the Switch, I'm always pressing the wrong button. It drives me crazy. I know there's settings that you can do to change all that, but I'm not always doing that in like a Mario Party group kind of game, whatever. So anyway, I just suffer in silence when I do that, but that's kind of fun. Like Rachel is really good at these types of games because she has a phenomenal memory, but I got a little bit of a head start on her. So it's been kind of fun, me actually getting to like answer some of her questions, because normally I'm the one asking her like, what the heck is going on? She's like, oh, it's this, blah, 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 blah. Now I get to be sort of like oh yeah, you have to, you can only plant this in that season, and and the last day hits, all your crops die, and blah, 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 blah. So anyway, it's kind of fun, just kind of nerding out, but it's been a fun little game. So yeah, that's mostly what I've been up to. And then we're going to have family coming in next week, and it's going to be just crazy. I'm going to be going bananas, but having a lot of fun, making memories too. So that'll be a good time. So, it'll be good. I'm sure I'll have some stories to share 2 weeks from now when I do the next recording, but yeah, there we go. So those are my adventures this week. We'll go ahead and wrap this thing up. All right. Well, I want to thank you for watching. I hope you have a safe and happy holidays. If you have one to celebrate, leave us some feedback. Let me know in the comments how we're doing. If you like what we're doing. If you want me to talk more like new product stuff, I kind of went light on that this week, but I could always sprinkle some more of that in. Honestly, I put in so much product stuff. I spent hours uploading all the photos and everything that we needed to insert into the video. And I was like, I can't do this to myself. This is a lot of time. So I kind of overcorrected a little bit this week. Anyway, leave me some feedback. Also keep asking questions. I got a lot of good questions from last week. So I got a little bit of stockpile, but never hurts to have more. So thank you for continued engagement. I really enjoy doing these videos and getting to read your comments. Definitely check out gouletpens.com. We're self-sponsored, if you will. So, if you buy ink, pen, and paper and all that stuff from us, we keep making more videos and we'll just never stop. And then my fun fact, 'tis the season, right? We got Thanksgiving around the corner, lots of pumpkin pie happening and things like that. Well, a little dash of nutmeg in a pumpkin pie or on your eggnog can give it some extra flavor and like a lovely spicy scent. However, too much nutmeg can be toxic. 2 to 3 teaspoons of raw nutmeg. That's not a lot, 2 to 3 teaspoons. I mean, it's a lot of straight up nutmeg, but not that much. It's like, relatively small amount. 2 to 3 teaspoons of raw nutmeg can induce hallucinations, convulsions, pain, nausea, paranoia that can last for several days. Actual fatalities are rare, but they have happened. So, not that you should be concerned about eating your pumpkin pie or anything this year, but yeah, there's always like challenges and stuff that come up on TikTok or whatever like that. Just don't do a nutmeg challenge. You can actually get hurt. So, anyway, little PSA for you to finish out the week. Hope you have a great next couple of weeks, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching, and right on.